Hi there. This is a presentation on how applicant tracking systems can impact your job search and how to use this insight to help you in your job applications approach in the future. We're going to cover what applicant tracking systems are, as well as the ins and outs of how employers use them in their selection of candidates in the hiring process. And then I'm going to give you some recommendations on how to apply this knowledge when applying for jobs with tailoring your resumes for the future. So let's start at the beginning. This is usually what a typical hiring process looks like. When employers look at all of the candidates that applied for a position, their goal is to narrow down that large pool of candidates through a series of multiple hurdles. So that first hurdle is to select which resumes to look at, and then to narrow down to offer some phone interviews to just the top candidates from that phase, and then to offer an in-person interview to the top people from that hurdle, and then ultimately to extend a job offer to the number one candidate. And so what we're focusing on in this presentation is actually a hidden step before that very first hurdle. And that's the applicant tracking system phase of the hiring process. And that happens before anything else. So that's why it's so important for you to make it through this very first hurdle so that you can continue to progress through the hiring process and ultimately get that final job offer and be the top candidate. Whenever a large organization opens up a position, they might get hundreds of applications for that single position. And that's a lot of resumes for someone to look through. So in order to make their job easier and more efficient, instead of looking at, say, 200 resumes, they might only look at 50. So they're going to automate that step in the process by using this database system, which is called the applicant tracking system. And that's going to find the most promising candidates' resumes and pull them out of the pool of applications as the top candidates. So this raises the question for you: how is it that the top ones are being identified? How is it that this tracking system is selecting the top candidates from that database? Well, all resumes for an online application are being stored in that database, that applicant tracking system. And that system will actually scan all the resumes for a few things while it's being held there. It's scanning for a similarity to the job description. So it will actually calculate a match rate of how similar the words in the resume are to the words in that job description. And it will also calculate a match rate for all of the specified keywords that it's searching for. So the person who is in charge of looking at all of the resumes can tell that applicant tracking system to scan all the resumes for some specified keywords according to your field. And these are usually coming from the job description as well. So from there, just the top candidate applications will be reviewed, the ones that are being seen as high top candidates from that applicant tracking system. And so those will be reviewed by a human. And all of the other ones that don't make it through that process and aren't selected are usually just going to sit in that database, and they aren't going to be seen by humans. And so what this means for you is that it is very important to tailor your resume according to that job description, because that applicant tracking system is going to be parsing through your resume and scanning for specific keywords and similarity to the job description. Your goal as an applicant is to have that applicant tracking system identify your resume as a top candidate. And so that is going to ensure that your resume is actually being seen by a human so that you can continue to progress through the different hurdles of the application process and get that job offer. What is it that you should do? There is going to be one key to help you through this, and that is going to be to tailor and edit and target your resume for each and every position. If you are using the same resume for each and every position that you apply for, it's not going to be as effective as it would be if you had your resume tailored for each specific position. And the reason for that is because that applicant tracking system is scanning it for similarity to each job description. And so having just a general resume that you're applying for all jobs with is not going to be the most effective approach. The most effective thing that you can do to get momentum in that application process and to get more interviews is to have it where everything in the resume is tailored to be specific and most relevant for each and every position. How to tailor that resume for each and every position. There's a few things that you can do. So if we're thinking about how it is that that applicant tracking system is pulling out the top candidates, remember that it's according to match rate to the job description and keywords. So that's how it is that you're going to tailor your resume. First, with match rate, since it is calculating a similarity between the words in your resume and the words in the job description, I highly recommend that you have that job posting next to you as you are developing your resume for that position. And so if you're looking at the words that are being used on that job description, most of it is going to be in the tasks that you would be doing in that job or internship. And so it is going to be to your benefit to include experiences on your resume that are as similar and relevant as possible to what is being described on the job posting. Also, just in general, match the wording that is in the job posting and use similar wording in your resume. And that will increase your overall match rate for the calculated similarity between your resume and the job description. That would be a more effective way than to just have a general resume that you apply for every position with. So tailor it according to the wording in the job description. The other big thing that you can do to tailor your resume is to have it according to keywords from your field. So if you think about what it is that an employer would be telling that applicant tracking system to look for in your resume, it's going to be words that are from the job description and keywords that are relevant to your field. So it's going to be up to you to sort of think about what keywords are important in your field and include those in your resume as much as possible. Usually hard skills from the job description, especially certain technology or softwares that are being used in that job, that's usually going to be really important things for you to have in your resume as much as possible. And then also for you to have the words recognized in your resume, you want to make sure that they're recognized by that tracking system. It's also important for you to spell out different abbreviations. So an example of this would be if you have the word SEO just as an abbreviation in your resume, but the tracking system is looking for search engine optimization, it might not recognize that as a match. So wherever possible, be sure to spell out the words and to have the wording in your resume match how it is that it's used in the job description. So some things can go by multiple names or multiple different terms. If you're wondering how it is you should write it out, just always lean on that job description. Let's go through an example now. So I've just pulled a sample job description for a graphic design intern. For those of you that don't know, a graphic designer is someone who creates graphics for an organization's promotional or marketing material, and it's usually someone with an art background. So if I were a student and I was applying for this position, I would look at this job description and look for ways to make my resume tailored for it. If I have any experience similar to what they are looking for in that top sentence, I would be sure to highlight that on the resume. So it's looking for some experience in designing display advertising products such as banners, emails, etc. If I had any experience similar to that, I would definitely highlight that on the resume. For instance, if I did a class project where I designed some kind of advertising material, that would be highly relevant to this internship. So I would be sure to have that on the resume. Looking down in the skills, it pulls out some hard skills there. And I would definitely include those on the resume. Even in a skills section, I would have that on a skills section if I had experience using them there. Or I could also have some examples of how I use that technology in the experience section itself. Some other things that I might see are those two bullets at the bottom, like attention to detail or ability to work in a fast-paced environment. Since that's in the job description, I could use my professional summary or my summary statement at the top of the resume. That's a great opportunity to include things like those two bottom bullets on the resume to increase the similarity to the job description. So I might say something like junior communication design major at UNT with strong attention to detail, design skills, and ability to work in a fast-paced environment. So that would be a way to have wording from the job description and some key skills that are on this internship in the resume so that my resume is more applicant tracking systems friendly. I would, of course, change those things for every position I apply for so that it's tailored for each job description. So, what is listed in this job description for this internship might be different from a different one that I apply for. So, I'd have a baseline resume and then sort of change a few things here and there to match it for each job. Some other tailoring tips that I have for you are regarding formatting. So, for instance, most of the clean formatting and fonts are going to be easier and more friendly towards the applicant tracking system. So, you want to make sure that that system can easily parse through the font on your resume. Um, for instance, this font on the left is going to be more than fine for a resume versus if you have something similar to this font on the right on your resume, although it does look pretty, there's a possibility that that applicant tracking system is not going to be able to read that font. It can't register the words using that curly Q font. So I would definitely avoid something like that and opt for something that is more clean and simple that that system can easily parse through. Also, avoid headers and footers on the resume. Sometimes the tracking system can pull words that are being on the header and footer in the resume, and sometimes it can't. So just to make sure, just to be cautious and make sure that that applicant tracking system is scanning for all of the content on your resume, avoid putting content in headers and footers on that document because it might not scan that. And then the other thing is to avoid highly stylized bullet points or graphics or any other thing on the resume that the tracking system might not register whenever it's scanning through the system. So it might not scan through that bullet point, that example there. It might pull up as just a question mark. Other little graphics like logos or small pictures that you have on the resume may confuse that tracking system. And so, again, although it looks nice for a human to look at, you just want to make sure that that tracking system is not going to have an error whenever it's scanning through that resume, just to make sure that all of your content is being read and to be as most of a competitive candidate as possible. You're going to want to avoid those things. And lastly, just a word of warning, if you are thinking that you can be ultra clever and just copy and paste the entire job description and put it in teeny tiny white font at the bottom of the resume, don't try to do that. That's a trick that many people use to try to cheat the applicant tracking system and get a really high match rate so that you get through that hurdle of the process. It's going to backfire later on. So although you would ideally get through that first phase with the applicant tracking system, recruiters are going to know it. They see that all the time. So definitely don't try to game the system in that way or try to copy and paste pieces from the job description into your resume. So be smart about the way that you are tailoring your resume to the wording in the job description. Include things that are going to be worded in the same way, but still do not copy and paste the entire job description onto your resume. Just be smart about how you're tailoring it and you'll be fine. So I hope that this is really helpful for you. If you have any other questions about how you can use this knowledge or anything else about how you can increase your effectiveness for your job search, whether it's for full-time jobs, on-campus jobs, or internships, please reach out to us. I've included our contact information here as well as our website. We have lots of resources there. Or you're always welcome to make an advising appointment one-on-one through Handshake, where we can meet with you and we can talk about your job search. So thank you so much, and I hope that you had a good time.